Vocals were a huge breakthrough for me. I have never felt that great about my singing voice. It's always been kind of pitchy. I've always had trouble mixing it. I now have a very solid vocal chain that I use, and I know exactly how to get my vocals into the right pitch with Melodyning and auto tune. And I feel so much more confident about showing people that now. The most helpful thing that I learned, honestly, was the mix bus, because it helped me make every single mixing decision. It helped me make them confidently. It helps my tracks sound more cohesive and polished. And working through the mix template that we set up actually made me feel good about my productions as they were coming together, rather than having to polish a turd after the fact, so to speak.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a client interview with Connor, and he's going to share his success story and his results that he's gotten after completing the 8 weeks of the mentoring. So let's dive right in. Connor, just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you were before we started working together.
What's up, y'all? I'm Connor. I had been learning production for a year before I met you, and I felt just so stuck. I felt like I thought I understood the concepts, but I just wasn't getting to the point where I felt comfortable showing people my music. I was always just like, hey, this is really rough. Don't judge me. And then I saw you posted that little poll on that Facebook group. I said, I struggle with everything. He hits me up, and throughout this entire 8-week process, I feel so much more confident in my skills. I actually feel like I can make a song from start to finish and actually feel comfortable showing it to the world. And that is such a huge improvement from where I was before.
Nice. And you've made some tremendous progress. Your stuff sounds a lot better. What were some of the things specifically that you were like stuck with and you didn't really feel confident with?
Layering in particular, I was always just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck, and I didn't really have much of a process, and everything just kind of ended up sounding muddy and cluttered. And thanks to this, I actually have a process to actually putting down like the default, like the basic layers, and then putting stuff on top of that. And there's actually a systematic way of approaching it that I didn't have before.
Okay, and what about in terms of vocal production?
Vocals were a huge breakthrough for me. I've never felt that great about my singing voice. It's always been kind of pitchy. I've always had trouble mixing it. I now have a very solid vocal chain that I use, and I know exactly how to get my vocals into the right pitch with Melodyning and auto tune. And I feel so much more confident about showing people that now.
Nice. I know a lot of people struggle with getting their voice to sound presentable. I struggled with that myself for a long time and eventually kind of found this process and a way to melodyne it and just make it sound like pleasant to your ears. And that's basically, I remember when we had that breakthrough, you were like, man, I can actually show people my voice now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I can listen without cringing now.
There you go. So how did you feel once we started progressing through each week? At what point did you start to really see the progress kicking in and the transformation?
I really started feeling more confident. I mean, week one, you showed how to lay down the basic foundation of a track, and I made what I made, and it was okay. Week two, I started feeling more comfortable using different loops and different sounds, working in different genres. Week three got into like sampling and sound design, and that was something I struggled with big time, and I felt like I made decent progress there. And it was the big turning point for me was definitely the vocal breakthrough, where I was like, okay, I actually feel confident. I actually feel like this deserves to be out there in the world and not just here in my room to stay forever.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It just kept getting better from there.
Amazing. Amazing. What do you think was the most helpful thing that you learned that got you to this point?
The most helpful thing that I learned, honestly, was the mix bus, because it helped me make every single mixing decision. It helped me make them confidently. It helps my tracks sound more cohesive and polished. And working through the mix template that we set up actually made me feel good about my productions as they were coming together, rather than having to polish a turd after the fact, so to speak.
Exactly. Basically, as you're producing it, you're already hearing it mixed, and there's no questioning from there. So that's really convenient.
Exactly.
Is there any advice you would give to someone who was in a similar position as you to kind of overcome this?
To someone who's overcome this or someone who hasn't yet?
Someone who was like kind of in your shoes like 2 months ago, going through what you were going through, what would you tell them?
I would tell them you really got to get a really solid grasp of the basics before you can. I mean, you can't swim the English Channel if you don't know how to swim. So you got to learn all the basics. You got to have a really strong foundation. And once you have that, you can actually learn the more advanced techniques and it'll actually make sense in your head rather than just copying what your favorite producers or YouTubers do. It actually makes sense to you. It actually, you have a process now rather than just kind of making shots in the dark, I guess is the best way to say that.
So you would say that at this point, like it actually makes sense. You understand the concepts. It's internalized. It's no longer like copy paste.
Exactly. I feel like I can, rather than someone telling me like, oh, like you should put a compressor on the vocals just because I said so. It's like, okay, I understand why I'm putting a compressor on the vocals or any like a multi-band on anything else. And now I understand why that happens and I understand what situations that's needed in. And that's just one example, but I just feel that way about a lot of other concepts now versus just trying to emulate the pros without really having an understanding.
So that's super key. So that way you can actually translate your knowledge and your understanding to like different situations and still make it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that's pretty amazing. If you want to get similar results with your music and your productions, feel free to just click on the link in the description. We can get on a call. You and I can talk together one-on-one, figure out what's holding you back, where you want to be, and the best way to get there. Very simple. So feel free to do that. And until next time.
Strongly recommend it, y'all. Take care.